Hello, one and all, to another D4 Portugal Zoom Racing League race. I mean, already from what we can see, it's into tires. Already things are happening in D4. I think Palon's going to be one of the first guys to set a lap here, but yeah, D4 starting off really crazy already with the Inters tracks. Seb, is it going to be a dry race?
We're still looking at that. So in the booth today, we have myself, Seb S. Sebington, and Mr. Luke Locklear. We're looking at a really exciting race here in Portugal. We have a full quali session, so all three quarters. So 5 drivers will be eliminated from this session, 5 drivers from the next, and the last 10 drivers will have a shootout at the end to see who can go fastest and take pole position for the race coming after this.
Yeah, and we'll see who definitely gets on pole position. Changing up setups is a very weird thing to do. I think this qualification show who is definitely running the higher to lower downforce ranges. As you can see, Palon already struggling for grip. So maybe we can get some telltale signs of what kind of setups these guys are running.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it's going to come down to whether or not we have. Sorry, whether or not the race is dry. We just heard from the Aston Martin pit wall. So, and quali will be dry later. So every driver should be running dry setups right now, which is actually going to provide a really big challenge for them to keep those cars going in a straight line. As Stars puts up a 1:29.6 and Florida just 1/10 behind him. As NBA goes fastest with a flat. That could be a bit of track development there.
Yeah, we don't know what the changeable conditions are. Clouds look kind of like, oh, okay, as Palon just sets 23. So it looks like the track is improving. Clouds are parting, so more sunlight is definitely starting to hit the track. But, let's see what these guys can do. Into tires, we haven't really seen much into action so far in the season. So it's nice to see we get some into action in D4.
Yeah, and I think really the only division to see it has been D4. So if you're in D4, you better hope that you're a good driver in the wet, because that seems to be what a lot of these sessions are.
Yeah, let's hop on board with Siggy right now. Williams' first pick to outstanding driver in the standings. Siggy definitely pulling a good lead on the standings. I think it's P6 if I recall.
P5
yeah.
now.
Oh, P5. Okay.
I do have to point out that he is driving around without a front wing, so despite that, he's going to have to hit on it in quali here. Looks like Gibbs is retired from the session.
Oh yeah, no, Gibbs is serving a qualifying ban. I forgot to mention that.
Okay. So, maybe not the weekend Gibbs wanted to be serving a qualifying ban, as he's going to be out of the race sitting there for a long while, but it's what happens when you rack up those penalty points. It ends up happening. He had an incident with Stars in Abu Dhabi, and I think that's what did it for him. So he'll be looking to not only make positions up, but try and have a clean weekend here and not get any more, because of course, if he gets a few more, the admins will be able to decide whether or not they give him a race ban.
Yeah, and you do not want a race ban. Trust me, I've experienced that myself. Hudsey just sitting at 28.1, so track development is definitely improving. We can definitely see some stronger times soon, as we just see Arrow setting the fastest lap of a 27.8.
Yeah, that's a good lap from Arrow. And basically what we're going to be seeing here is can the teams team it right to make sure that they're putting in laps on the optimal conditions. And the rain is still falling, but of course the forecast is saying it's going to be dry at some point in the qualifying session. Within qualifying. So it could be the end of this session that we see people throwing the soft tires on to try something.
Yeah, and doesn't that just add to the excitement?
Yeah.
Don't we love these sort of types of changeable conditions where timing and strategy calls and engineering really shines in these kinds of conditions?
Yeah, and I think what'll make it particularly interesting once we get to the race is that this could really shake up the qualifying order. If people who might be rapid in the dry just can't get it put together in the wet, or they invalidate their last lap and get buried, then they're going to be making positions up, and we're going to be seeing them fight through the field. The other thing is that this actually makes the rest of qualifying a bit easier for the teams. Of course, the big thing with full qualifying is managing the allotted amount of soft tires you have, which is around 4 over all three sessions for qualifying, and you basically need to make sure that you have fresh tires set laps in every session, and try and save a set of tires for the race in case you have that late safety car. So this session is actually, and being on the inters has given the teams another option, which is they haven't had to use the softs in this session.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely preserving their soft tires for later on to the stint, depending if Q2 and Q3 do happen to be dry as well, or maybe we see a little bit of damp conditions and we get to play around with a little bit of damp, soft tire conditions, which definitely could be a lot more interesting coming around. But I mean, as we see, let's look at that top 5 standings so far. I mean, NVA, Aero, Pylon, Hudson, and Christian Cummings. I mean, I can tell you right now, some of the faster drivers definitely showing their face on the wet. I mean, Stars FPS also not having a very good lap, getting a little bit squiggly off the some corners, probably just getting used to the conditions. I mean, B-Boy Simba, I mean, we've seen a lot of great things from him, definitely improving a lot this season as we see Kaisler, the Alfa Romeo driver, going P3.
Yeah, that's a really good lap from him, and just some things in the constructors and drivers battle in D4. Of course, Ferrari and Red Bull only have 2 points between them for Ferrari. So those teams will be looking to try and get a really good result, and that given with Hudson and Christian in 5 and 6, Ferrari is really going to need Aaron Green to step it up a bit here and see if he can't squeeze a bit more. But of course, it is only Q1. NBA going fastest. He's our championship leader right now, so he'll be looking to build a gap. And of course, Hudson down in P5. I mean, it could change once we get to the drive, but Hudson being in P2 definitely needs a good result to keep some momentum going into Baku next week.
Yeah, I mean, let me just mention this right now, Seb. The rain has stopped. I don't see any more, like, droplets getting down, so we may be seeing a drying track just now. So maybe we can see someone start experimenting with the soft tires at this point, as we see the Alfa Romeo of Kaisler avoiding the rest of the cars.
Yeah, and this is actually a brilliant time for this to happen, because at the end, the track might not have the most grip. It might be a bit of a gamble if you go out on softs or inters, and I mean, that could really shake up the order.
I mean, shaking up the order, it's already doing. I mean, so far the cutoff times for Q1 seem to be around the 130s standpoint, high 120, mid 129s. Actually, no, pardon me, mid 129s, low 129s seem to be the cutoff point for our Q1 inters so far, but we'll see what happens later on in the session.
Yeah, of course, they've already moved up into the 27s, so I mean, we'll see. The track is obviously developing incredibly quickly, especially without the rain falling. So the teams are just going to be keeping an eye on it. Watch for that first person who tries to run on the soft tire and see if it's viable yet.
Yeah, and viable, we'll see. Nothing too interesting is happening right now. I mean, people are getting to the pits, people are finishing their hot laps. As we see Ben, Alpine superstar himself, dropping a P3.
Yeah, and something I want to mention is if you look at the track around Ben, I'm not seeing any puddles of water. So, of course, those are a bit more rare with inters condition, but as you start seeing absolutely none, that's a really good indicator that the track is going to dry in the next couple of minutes. As Ben keeps it going down the straight, so he obviously thinks that he wants to set a bit more time in the inters or try and clear some water. As Siggy goes fastest, those inter tires working well for him, and of course, he had an incident at the beginning, so that's the first lap time he's set, so being fastest is really good for him, and only by a 10th from NBA, so that might not have been track development. Although you imagine it would be.
Yeah, I mean, not track development, but at the same time, I mean, you can definitely see around turns 5 and 10, this track is definitely starting to show certain signs of drying up. I mean, that first start of that second sector, is a bit still has a bit more standing water on the track, but through Sector 3 and the beginning of Sector 1, you can see the dry line is definitely starting to form.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know. Based off all your experience, do you think we'll be seeing soft tires by the end of this session?
Knowing Codemasters and Cody's themselves, I think this is just going to be an inters race to the end. I feel like everyone's going to have to do their best on these tires, and they shouldn't be taking any gambles right now. I mean, it is still Q1, so I think doing what everyone else is doing is a safe bet.
Yeah, but, you know, as you're coming out for the final runs around the 3-minute mark, it might not be what everyone else is doing. I think that That's what's really interesting here is, especially for the people in the back, a risk on the soft tires might be worth it for them.
And I mean, isn't this perfect into conditions? I mean, slightly damp track, no rainfall, nice and cold for the tires. I mean, I think this is still into conditions, and we're gonna still see these into tires through the end.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, as Ben showed us just earlier, the severe understay he's having through the end of Sector 3. I mean, he's having to literally lift out of the corner.
Oh, as we have a Haas around on the straight. Looked like that was Kevin Magnussen trying to enter the pit lane, went into the wall. If he wasn't trying to enter, he is now. Kevin Magnussen, who's been a relatively quick driver, has just been getting relatively unlucky, I think, of course, throwing on a dry setup, or a wet setup in Brazil for a dry race. He's not showing as much pace as I think he would have wanted to, with only a 131.9 compared to Ben's pole time of a 126.8.
I mean, let's talk about Hokage Rolly real quick. I mean, from star driver in the first 2 races to, like, questionable at best over this past couple of practice sessions and even this race. I mean, Hokage Rolly is definitely improved, but has he taken 2 steps forward in qualification and 2 steps back in race?
I mean, just to be brutally honest, I don't know how good Hokage's consistency was in the race to begin with, but I mean, it's a lot easier to fix an inconsistent driver who's already quick than to make a consistent driver quick. And I think it's very fair to say that Hokage has made a very impressive jump when it comes to his pace this season. So I wouldn't count him out, and if he can keep that progression going through the rest of the season, I think he could be a serious points contender for Aston Martin come the last half of the season. But of course, he'll be looking to improve here.
Yeah, and I mean, let's just also recognize that 2 drivers are not attending this race, plus Gibbs has a qualification ban, so only 2 drivers will be knocked out, so definitely some of these drivers who are not that comfortable in the conditions can breathe well, that knowing that there's a very high chance that they can get stuck into the qualification of Q2.
Yeah, but of course they have to remember that 2 drivers will be eliminated, and if they get that strategy that little bit wrong, that it could be them. So that'll also be weighing on their mind, and particularly the team's mind, to make sure that we get everything right here.
Yeah, and I mean, let's just talk about Portimao. I mean, Portimao definitely a very low grip track, as we all know. Very controller friendly, grip-wise. I mean, I haven't personally drove this track on Inters yet, but I can definitely tell that it is definitely a pacing sort of track, as in you can't really just go all out and just slam the car into corners. You really have to just feel the limits of the track. What do you think, Seb?
Yeah, I think the big thing is mid-quarter understeer, but I'd like to remind you that you have driven this track on Inters before against me, and if I remember correctly, I was faster than you, so, you know, we're not going to forget about that one.
Okay, I will forget about that one because Aero just at a 26 flat, 6/10 ahead of the competition.
Yeah, so that's that track development cutting in. Aero's going to want to make sure he can get another lap in here by the end. Of course, he'll get around, so he's probably charging his battery to set one last lap and make sure he can get in there. But that's a really good lap from Aero, who's looking to climb from P4 in the standings right now.
And I mean, Siggy just invalidated his lap, not going to be able to improve. He does have, let me check, 3 laps of fuel? Yeah, that's 3 laps of fuel, so Siggy will be able to do another final lap, as Florida just jumps to P4. I mean, Florida flying under the radar for these first couple of races, but I mean, Florida definitely showed last season why he deserves to be in that top 5.
Yeah, and I mean, important to remember from the draft that Florida fell, at least in my opinion, ridiculously low, so I'm glad that he can finally show his colors here, even if it's on the Inters. Of course, we're going to have to see by the end of the session how much of this is genuine pace and how much of it is track development. As Pylon goes into P3, every driver out on the Inters here, so going to be making sure they can improve as there's yellow flags out in Sector 2. Looks like an Alpine of K-Seb, just making sure to get out of the way of that McLaren.
And I'll also like to just add, the track conditions seem to be staying still, so it's going to be in the end.
Yeah, and of course 1 minute left, so every driver needs to be starting their final laps. They're not going to have time to go around if they're invalid.
Yeah.
Looks like...
Go ahead.
Looks like Siggy and Aero are the first to go ahead and start their laps, as me and Luke have a little battle of politeness in the booth here. Interestingly, both Alpine drivers have come into the pits, so they must think that the two people would improve over their times, but I think Haseb is seriously in a dangerous position there.
Yeah, and I mean, as you see Stars FPS going at 27.3, so I mean, this could be showing that the McLaren boys are having a little bit of a low aero setup compared to the rest of the grid.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? So I think we'll start to see as the track starts drying, which will hopefully be next session. But Stars honestly is probably hoping to be a little bit higher. He's in P3 in the standings, and he has a bit of a gap to Hudson, 4 points, and of course a massive gap to NBA, who's in P1, who's at 65 points to Hudson's 51.
Yeah, and I mean, let's just talk about Florida one more time. Setting a top 3 time. I mean, never mind top 4 as NBA sets a 25.8.
Yeah, and that's the standard that NBA has been setting for D4 this season, and you know, I mean, it almost feels like it's a cosmic truth of ZRL that the Ferrari in D4 has to be dominating at least a little bit.
Yes, let's see any other improvements. As Aero sets a 25.1.
Yeah, and looks like Hokage came across the line, did not improve. We have a Red Bull coming up. It's Leo Hudson, who's on an invalid lap. But we have a Haas coming around now of Kevin Magnussen. He'll be looking to improve his time, as he's in the bottom two will be eliminated, and he doesn't improve his time. So Kevin Magnussen is going to be eliminated.
Buffalo just gets a 2! Buffalo just gets a 2 by his teammates and saves him into Q1!
Yeah, so that's K7 and Magnussen out of qualifying. Every other driver is safe, of course. Gibbs serving that qualifying ban, and Keisler just gets Buffalo through by the skin of his teeth. So Buffalo will be hoping he'll have a bit more pace on dry tires to try and make it to Q3.
And I mean, what a masterclass work from Alfa Romeo. I mean, we love to see this kind of teamwork in the booth. I mean, we rarely see it nowadays in this season, but I mean, a good example of this is like last season D3. I mean, teamwork can help so much during these kinds of qualifying events, but people don't take it on merit that much, you know? The kind of advantages you can gain. So nice to see the Alpha boys working together and looking strong.
Yeah, of course, but as the Q1 session comes to an end, I mean, what are our predictions for Q2?
I mean, I would love to just see Air dominate everyone, as he should be doing, but I think we can definitely see a lot of Aero, NVA, Kaisler, Florida, Hudsey, Pylon, and I think Styles FPS is definitely going to be jumping a lot of bars.
Yeah, but
Oh,
it'll
Christian
also be
Cummins has a
interesting to see who can
5-position
step
grid
up.
penalty.
Yeah, I think that happened at the beginning of the session. It looked like he made contact with another driver, so
Yeah, and
that'll be very good for Ferrari come to the race. But our top 3 at the end of Q1 are Aero, NVA, and Keisler.
yeah, and I mean, setting a
Keisler,
25.1, 25.8, and a 26.2, I mean, a very big spread in times.
yeah. And I mean, I think that's track development on the Inters, but I think that leaves us with a really exciting qualifying session where you kind of don't know what's going to happen going into this next session.
Uh-huh. We will definitely see what happens, and we will be back in a couple of minutes for qualifying 2. Hi everyone and welcome back. So qualifying to D4 Portimao. I mean, what can we take away from that last qualifying session, Seb?
I mean, I think we saw some great teamwork from Alfa Romeo to get Buffalo Trace through, but I don't know if you can tell a lot because, of course, the track is going to be drying rapidly in this session. We have 14 minutes and absolutely no rain. The track was already borderline, from my estimations, at the end of that session, or the last session, sorry. So we'll be seeing drivers with their softs on here, and I think really get an idea of the kind of pace we can expect from these drivers.
I mean, I'm just letting you know right now, Seb. Buffalo Trace and Kaiser on the interties. So,
Yeah,
I mean, the
everyone's
track.
coming out on the inters. We'll see if Pylon here comes back into the pits, and he does. So it looks like Pylon has decided that the soft tires are not worth it, but seeing a little bit of rain show up on the TV pod. Not sure if it's starting to rain a little bit again,
I mean, we're seeing
or
aero as well on the interties. So, I mean, if the track conditions aren't. I mean, it is low grip, so I wouldn't be necessarily saying that there's a nice safe window you can. Oh, as Aero just had a moment out of the exit, so I'm guessing it's not. Uh, no, Aero goes in. Aero's going onto
yeah,
the soft tires.
he must think it's dry. Looks like Heisler was the only person who decided he just set a little bit of a banker on the inters, but Arrow did very well to keep it out of the wall there after having that little moment as the Mercedes pit crew brings him back in.
Oh yeah, for sure. Let's jump on with Kaiser. Let's see how these interties are working.
Of course, he's coming through turn 5. Traction is very low to this corner, and from this next corner, turn 6, it's all about just carrying the most speed in, and then as you come up the hill here, the camber's very odd, so the grip is super low. Looks like Heisler dropped it into first gear, which is very surprising here, so he's trying to utilize low gears in the wet conditions, which is honestly not something I'd expect. As he comes through here, again, a lot of understeers. You come on this downhill, the car likes to float up a little bit, but now he's coming up to turn 11, I believe, and just a little bit of traction. This is low speed, so it's a great place to find time, and then he's going to come around the final corner. The exit is super important here as it brings you on to the final straight. Of course, on the inters, it depends on how wet it is, but you might not be flat coming around this corner to the final straight, and we're going to see where Keisler can bring his lap.
Yeah, that definitely wasn't a flat cone at the end of it. 25.41. That's definitely an improvement.
That's a 2-second improvement from Q1.
Yeah, so the track is definitely drier. But
and
interties still?
We have Siggy, Ben, Stars, and Pylon. Sorry, not Stars, Forda, and Bebry out on dry tires. So teams will be looking at their time, seeing what they can do. It looks like Stars is the first one coming across the line, so we'll be keeping an eye on him, seeing how he does. But this is where we're going to see if it's time for the soft tires, but it looks like it. Stars looks like he goes through fine with plenty of traction in turn 1, so I think teams are going to be switching to soft tires now.
Yeah, and I mean, the temperatures are manageable. It's at 85 degrees. That's about where traction starts coming with these soft tires, so I think definitely soft tires in play. I mean, Buffalo Trace is about to lap, so let's see what he can do. Oh, DRS, yeah.
So as soon as DRS is enabled, the track is well dry enough for softs as Stars gets the fastest first sector by quite a margin.
Yeah, so Buffalo Trace goes across the line. I'm guessing he's going to beat his teammate. He doesn't, but hopefully he can pull that back in his next pit stop.
Yeah, and that should be really concerning for Buffalo that he didn't beat out his teammate on the soft tire compared to the inters. I'm not sure what happened there. I imagine there had to have been a bit of a moment. I mean, yeah, that's an incredibly slow soft time. I'm starting to use my brain a little bit. You know, waking up at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I mean, it's almost everyone besides Kaisler and Hatsuya out on soft tires. As you see, Bieber on the medium tires, probably scrubbing in those mediums.
Sorry to interrupt you, but Stars comes across the line to set a 1:22.5, so lap times are not exactly where we'd expect them. Grip is still a little low, but proving that those soft tires are viable.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, DRS activated as well, so Stars will definitely be getting a boost from that high top speeds.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, I think we have Siggy coming. Yeah, Siggy now coming across the line. think Florida as well. Florida sets a P2 time of a 22.7. Siggy comes across the line, sets pole with a 21.4.
Yeah, so Siggy on the fastest time right now, a 1:21.4. So the track is definitely ramping up. It will continue to develop throughout this session. So honestly, if I'm the teams, once my drivers set times, I'm pitting them and just waiting for the last 3 minutes and let them throw the fastest lap they can when the track is as dry as possible.
Yeah, and I mean, we'll see what happens as Pylon comes across the line with a 22.2. So Siggy setting a very good lap apparently.
Yeah, that looks very solid. And the thing with Portimao is, of course, is a very low grip track. So similar to what I was saying about Abu Dhabi last week, it can be a lot about how much you're willing to put on the table when it comes to the throttle. And I think especially in these conditions that he was probably just able to pick up the throttle earlier than other drivers, and that's what gave him the time. Of course, that's a far bigger risk, but if you could put it together, I mean, the time gain is massive.
I can imagine as we might be seeing some sort of Williams toe right now.
Looks like both drivers are on in laps, so just hugging each other a little bit.
Oh no, that's a lap. A 20.9.
Great.
But I mean, he's at 0.1 fuel, so he's gonna crawl back to the pits.
Yeah, he should have enough time to throw a new set on and do another lap by the end if he thinks he needs to, which he honestly might, because Arrow sets a 1:19.4, so the track is definitely ramping up. This is closer to the times we were expecting from D4, so I think we'll be seeing these times climb, and probably a very representative of dry conditions come Q3.
Oh yeah, for sure. As Half the Grid has still not yet set a lap, so as B-Boy Simba, Aaron G, as well as also he's known, sets a 19.7.
Yeah, very solid lap from him, but I think the track is definitely developing at an increasing rate.
Yeah,
here.
Siggy's gonna have to do his best job to stay away from all the traffic and not hit any of the boards, because some people do use them.
Yeah, and of course, being that slow, you really have to be good about getting out of the way. You don't want to pick up a penalty for block, and the stewards do not take very kindly to it.
Siggy definitely being very, very cautious around it. As we also, I think, have a Ferrari around. No, that's just some no flags. We have the two Red Bulls now starting to set their lap. Let's see what they can do. I mean, Christian Cummings, the favorite this year, tends to be not so much the favorite towards the standings.
Yeah, and he'll be looking for improvement, but I just want to say, Big Ilbro's got a set P3, and Pilot and Okage have set 4 and 5, so Mercedes and Aston Martin seem to be having a really good time this early into Q2.
As Christian Cummings just sets the second fastest lap.
Yeah, so there's that improvement we were just talking about that he'll like to see, but important for everyone watching to remember that 5 drivers are going to be eliminated at the end of this session who go into the top 10 shootout. So it's very important that the teams figure out how to get their drivers through so they have the chance to set a pole position.
Yeah, that's very true. And I mean, most drivers who have already set a lap are waiting in the pits right now, waiting to set their next lap. I mean, as long as you're in that 119 range, I think you'll be safe. I think anything in the 120s, you'll definitely be on the knife edge on falling off.
Looking at the times, as Ben sets a 19.4, I think high 19s is going to be at risk here, to be honest. I think the track is ramping up, and that's why we're seeing the times climb so much.
Yeah, I mean, we will see times climb, obviously, as track conditions do improve, but to a certain degree, I think low 20s should be a cutoff point of dropping down, because Buffalo Trace himself has shown last qualifying session that he might not be able to make it pace-to-pace with some of these guys.
Yeah, I mean, with how close he was, he might need a much bigger toe to get through, as Leo Hudson sets a 19 flat. So we could see some drivers hitting 118s here. But this is why I love full qualifying sessions. I think the jeopardy and the strategy, the kind of things we see in the race, is really missing the short quali sessions when you really get in the full quali sessions, despite how much longer it makes the sessions.
Indeed, as you see, I think this Bieber and Buffalo Trace is on a hot lap right now. Bieber seems to be
and also that that toe we were talking about for the Alfa Romeo boys is happening here. Keisler giving Buffalo a toe down the entirety of the main straight. So Buffalo will get on with his lap and hope that gained him plenty of time.
Yeah, Buffalo definitely be looking to maximize using his teammate. Not a bad thing, but definitely knows he is having a slight disadvantage on pace, which is okay. Buffalo has been showing a lot of improvement over the season.
Yeah, and this is the kind of teamwork that reminds me of Wild Fury and Klinsmann last season in Mercedes. Who just every race, at D2 I think, would just work together, D3, sorry, would just work together beautifully and really brought the fight to Red Bull. And I mean, this worked with the toes. This is twice now. They're obviously working together and making sure, trying to get things done for the team, which is really good on Keisler for doing that. And Buffalo is obviously taking advantage and dealing with his limitations.
Yeah, and I mean, as we'll start seeing all the cars starting to head out now, I mean, we see at least, oh, Bieber, no, has a little bit of a flick of the tail on his hot lap, but
yeah,
he'll be definitely going in satisfied with a 19.6.
With 2 minutes left, Buffalo needs to decide whether he's better off completing this lap or coming in and throwing on new tires, but it looks like he decides completing this lap is better, and he's P10. So he is massively at risk. Of course, P11 and down is going to be eliminated from this session. Currently at risk, so Kage Rolde, Siggy, Forda, Stars, and NBA, who's yet to set a time.
Yeah, I mean, NBA surprisingly hasn't set a time yet. I mean, waiting?
I mean, he's on an out lap now, so we're going to see what he can do. Looks like the first person across the line is going to be Bevry, though. No, he comes into the pits, so NBA is going to be starting us off on seeing what lap times and who can get through to Q3, but of course NBA needs to put in a performance here. He cannot afford to invalidate his lap because he's leading the championship right now, and he can't afford to have to fight through the field here, especially not at Portimao, which to be honest is a track that's very hard to follow at and doesn't have a lot of great overtaking points.
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely going to start seeing improvement in time here. As already looking at NBA's lap, the amount of grip difference between early Q2 versus now is very heavily, so we can start seeing some more realistic times in the 18s.
Yeah, and I think that's rubber starting to get put down on the track. Of course, that'll get washed away. So it looks like NBA is the fastest Sector 1. Coming around turn 5 now, gets good traction. But, you know, that rubber gets washed away by the rain and starts coming back. And that's when the lap times really start to pick up. And of course, this does leave NBA in a bit of jeopardy with him being the first across the line. If the track development is really that good, he could fall down towards the end.
Yeah, I think that's Big Elbow giving NBA the necessary space because, contrary to popular belief, Portimao is somewhat tight in certain spots of the track.
Yeah, the track likes to pinch off from being wide, and it's nice to turn in and make some fun corners, but it does make it hard to get out of the way. So big on Elbow for doing that is we have NBA coming to the final corner. Those a really good lap room. We'll see what time he can set. That's the fastest lap with an 18.7. So we are into the 118s in Q2, which is definitely not what Mr. Luke Locklear was predicting.
Oh yeah, definitely not. NBA should be very careful not slowing down in front of the pits. That is a disqualification by the game, so NBA needs to be a bit careful. You do not want to slow in front of the pits.
Yeah, trying to check your next person across the line here. It's Aaron Green, so he comes across the line, gonna see what he can do. He puts it P3, so Aaron Green has most definitely gotten himself through this session as Siggy's coming up to the line now. He's at P5, so he's not really at risk. He comes into the pits. He thinks that no one is going to improve on his time, but we have an Aston Martin coming around, both of them at risk. This is Pylon, puts himself P7, so he could fall down. P8 already. I think that was Leo Hudson put himself in P3 ahead of Aaron Green. Of course, Ailbro, Buffalo, Hokage, and Stars are still in the elimination zone, and they're working on setting their laps right now. Stars at the bottom. He needs to improve here. He's stuck in P4, and he's wanting to fight for the championship this season for McLaren.
Yeah, and I mean, he's definitely putting on a good job so far. P3 in the standings, but he needs to be P3 in the session right now if he wants to make it through.
He's put at P7. That puts him in a good position. Of course, Arrow is now at risk. He still needs to come across the line. Elbro in 14th. Someone jumps up the order. I'm not sure who that was. But Elbro in 14th coming across the line puts a P8, so he might be safe here.
Yes, Arrow's slowly coming across the line. Let's see if he has improved on his lap, and it looks like an improvement, and he pole position for Arrow.
That's excellent, and that's our order. So the drivers being eliminated from Q2 are Ben in the Alpine, Pylon in the Aston, Florida, who we were hoping after Q1 would have a really good result, Bebry and Buffalo Trace, who of course made it through to Q2 by the skin of his teeth due to some good teamwork.
Yeah, and I mean, this top 10 seems to be right. I expected all these people to come through. Who I didn't expect to drop off was Ben and Pylon. I mean, some of the fastest pace guys, I mean, Pylon dropping from D1 to D4. I mean, definitely expect a bit more from him, as I think Joel did, but slightly disappointing from those two.
Yeah, and I think that's what was interesting about this session is because we had so much track development, it really just takes that one bad lap at the end to knock you down to the bottom. But that's a storming lap from Arrow, 3.5 tenths faster than NVA and P2. So I think we'll be seeing these two fighting it out for pole position come the race.
And
Or
let's not
sorry,
forget this,
come Q3.
and also let's not forget Big Ale, bro. I mean, definitely starting off the season struggling for sure, and then making it into the top 10 in Q3. I mean, what a drastic shift in pace.
Yeah, and who we were talking about in Q3 is Hokage Rolde put himself in P3. That's an incredibly strong qualifying position from him, and he'll definitely be hoping to carry that momentum through to Q3.
Yes, a lot of these drivers in the top 10 can be very proud uh, of their qualifications. I mean, a lot of these guys, pace-wise, are definitely strong, and I can't wait to see a proper Q3 battle.
Yeah, and I don't think we have anyone who seems a little bit out of place in Q3, so this will definitely be an exciting battle for provisional pole as we start to get into the session.
Oh yeah, for sure. So we're loading in to next session.
Yeah,
Ooh,
so
clouds are a
the
bit
cloud.
dark.
Yeah, I mean, the clouds are always that dark throughout all the sessions, but we're not seeing them lighten up, so it's all going to come down to more rubber being put on track and the track warming up a little bit.
So if I'm not wrong, these drivers have 3 sets of tires right now. I mean, if I was them, I'd be trying to maximize that right now by going out immediately. But what do you think, Seb?
You really only have time for 2 runs in Q3 unless you really push, I think, but I think you want to kind of save those tires for the race, make sure they don't have a ton of wear in case things go poorly. So, just, set your first lap and then evaluate where you need to be, but getting out early always seems to be the play in Q3 with such little time.
I mean, as we have Kaiser and not BB, but Siggy coming out for their hot laps right now.
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
Siggy and Keisler are people I think we can really see battling for provisional pole here. They showed tremendous pace, particularly on the inters, but they really clawed it back in the last session.
yeah, I mean, we see the rest of the drivers sitting inside the pits looking to maybe uh, benefit from these guys being on hot laps, putting them down a little bit of rubber before they set their laps.
Yeah, so we have a bunch of drivers staying in the pits. They're probably just waiting a bit, see if Keisler and Siggy can't throw a little rubber down for them on the racing line. So while we're sitting here waiting, what do you think the strategies are going to be that we see in the race?
I mean, the strategies during the race, I mean, hard mediums, medium hards, I mean, it's a toss of a coin so far, in my opinion. I mean, both strategies have shown to be working. Freddie Rizal testing the strategy in one of our practices, becoming very successful. I mean, the pace is really strong. It's there. I mean, it just depends what these guys have been working with over the off week.
Yeah, and do you think that we might see any big crazy strategies from people down in the back who need to make up a lot of places? McLaren?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Portimao is one of those tracks that allow that sort of flexibility. I mean, Abu Dhabi definitely showed flexibility through strategy as McLaren's got a perfect, and I mean very near perfect strategy of a two-stop done with SWAT, I believe. But I don't think we'll be seeing any of that this race.
And how accident-prone do you think the drivers are going to end up being here in the race?
Knowing that I spin, I think others can spin as well.
Perfect. As Keisler is coming through Sector 3 now, that looks like went pretty quick through Sector 2, so he'll be looking to just tie up these few corners and set a really good banker time here.
I mean, Kaiser dropping all the way down to first gear going through that corner. Really, really trying to get all that rotation out of the car.
Yeah, and he's coming around. The revs are climbing. He's coming up to the line. Of course, he has Siggy behind him. Will be looking to do better than him. His Pedro does a 1:18.5. So I don't. Was that better than the time Arrow set in Q2?
Arrow set at 18.7 if I was not wrong. You can always check my team telemetry. Yeah, but another 18.5. So that seems to be the base so far. I mean, you want to be going faster than that, obviously. So.
Yeah,
I mean, these are the final positions.
That's 4 1,000s between Siggy and Keisler's. So those two drivers proving that they're incredibly even matches. We have a Ferrari of NBA coming across line. Of course, NBA shows incredible pace. And he was starting a lap, so I, of course, need to get my eyes and brain checked.
And we'll be checking them on B-Boy Simba, who's touching the curve into turn 5. Not too sure about that one, but he seems to be definitely more comfortable with this track, as he's definitely been showing a lot of strong pace this season.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know that it was a pick that everyone expected. I mean, Aaron has never been a slow driver, but I think there were some picks that people might have thought Ferrari would have gone through, but I think it's proving to turn out pretty decently for Ferrari here.
Yeah, I mean, Ferrari definitely picking a very broader team. This is taking, I think Red Bull this season has taken more risks than any other team. I mean, for me, I think I picked safe picks, to be honest, if you ask me.
Well, I don't know that I'd say I'm a safe pick in D3.
You're not a safe pick.
but in D4, you definitely grab very safe picks. Elbro's always a very consistent driver, and of course, Arrow has shown incredible pace this season as Aaron Green hits a 1:18.9, so a good lap from what we've seen from his pace in practice.
Yeah, and I mean, as we also see Aaron negotiating this last corner, let's see what upholstered of Q2 can do.
NVA does a 1:18.1. That's a very good lap. Arrow only manages a 1:18.6, so he really needs to push up for his last lap and fight for that provisional pole position.
We also have Hokage Roli, I think, making
his
way to the end.
Hokage set a top 3 time in Q2, so very good from him. As we look above, it looks like the clouds are starting to clear, so the track is going to start to really give the drivers the kind of optimal grip they expect.
Yeah, and I mean, as we see Stars FPS with a 119, not too competitive from Stars. I mean, hearing from Stars, a couple of issues for Portimao, not too comfortable with the track, but I mean, still pulling out
spins in turn 4.
Yeah, not too comfortable. Probably a setup issue with McLaren, but either way, I mean, Stars FPS on his weakest track in Q3, still decent job from the American driver.
Yeah, and as long as he can keep it clean in the race, the bad qualifying doesn't necessarily matter. I think this track is going to be very spin and incident prone, so as you can just keep your nose out of the dirt, you can really make up positions here and fight far higher than you qualified. But of course, we'll have to wait and see what happens.
I mean, as how Kage Roli goes over track limits but doesn't invalidate, shows you the inconsistency of track limits on this track. Sometimes the game does punish you, sometimes it doesn't. You have to get lucky. It's mostly a straw poll.
Yeah, of course, there are some times where it's very hard to tell. Sometimes one tire is just slightly over, so not sure if that's what happened with Hokage there.
Let's hope it's not a habit during the races. Time penalties will become a big issue for a lot of these drivers.
Yeah, and I think track limits can get big when the car starts to get loose and you try and save it while keeping your foot in. You can really start to pick up track limits that way, which of course is frustrating as a driver because you've already lost time and are now getting penalized for it. So not only does that give you the obvious penalty, but it can really mess with your mental state and focus in the race.
Yeah, I mean, as Hokage comes in, abandons his lap. I don't know what happened to Hokage, but I guess he didn't really enjoy that run. So far for your top 5, we have NV, Christian, Hudson, Kaiser, and Siggy is your top 5 currently. We got 2 Red Bulls, 1 Ferrari, and Alfa and Williams. Go ahead.
I don't think Hokage didn't like his lap. I think he came in to ensure that they'd get around to do a run in the closing minutes of qualifying.
I still think they had enough time to go around. You'd come in at 3 minutes. That was more than enough time.
Yeah,
as
but
I think Christian Cummings coming in for his lap might be cutting it close. This at another final lap. This might be his final lap. I mean, they only have 2 sets of softs left.
I believe that might be an in-lap. The red light on the back of his car is flashing a bit earlier than you'd expect in
Oh,
the lap.
yeah. I see. Okay. Guessing everyone's going to be coming in now, trying to set their final few laps. I mean, Hokage Roli, definitely getting unlucky here, but let's see what he can do in this final few minutes.
Now, the only car we have on track is Siggy, but as we're waiting for the drivers to come out for their final laps in Q2, I mean, we have an incredible roster of drivers here, and they're all looking to grab his provisional pole here. Is we have Keisler the first out of the pits, so most of the drivers will probably start to follow him here, but he needs to be careful. If all the drivers wait and really push it, then he'd be running into traffic on his lap.
Yeah, that is true. So, Kaiser not picking a optimum time of leaving, but probably feels comfortable that he wants to go out now and feels safe that he can make it to the finish line.
And of course, Siggy coming around the final turn now. I think he's starting his flying lap, so he's on a interesting interval here. Of course, most people opting to start their laps with basically at the very end of the session to maximize grip, but Siggy decided he just wanted to avoid any traffic and get on with it. So we'll see if that ends up panning out for him, as he's in P5 right now with an 18.5, so he needs to find 4/10 on the current provisional pole time of an 18.1.
Yeah, as you can start to see the Mercedes boys starting to get out their cars. I mean, 2 minutes is around the best time to let out. And as we see NG and the other cars starting to come out as well. So Alfa Romeo might be in a little bit of traffic right now. Not so optimum of coming out so early.
Yeah, no. Of course, I think that came down to all the teams were kind of pushing it with how late they could come out, and I don't think Alfa Romeo expected that.
Yeah, Stars FPS is going to have to be very careful here. He's going to be behind. Obviously, Stars FPS gives enough space, more than enough.
Yeah, and now all these drivers back here need to spread themselves out and make sure that they can get the laps in. Now, both Mercedes drivers at the back of the pack, so they could either have the most grip here or not make it to the line at the end with how late they decided to come out.
Knowing with full lap times of 118 and they're already on to sector 2, they should have enough time to reach the line.
Yeah, but of course, if they get traffic from the Ferrari behind them or have to spread out from one another.
Spawns on his hard lap. That's
Oh,
it for
you hate
Kaiser.
to see that. Yeah, that locks him to P5 or lower, so he'll be hoping no one behind him can improve, but Arrow's incredibly close with a 118.6, so I think we can see Arrow snipping that time from Keisler, for sure.
Oh yeah, and let's not count out Big O, bro. I mean, the improvements he's done. Definitely aiming for mid-118s with Ale. So let's see what he can pull off. Maybe push some of these drivers down to help Arrow out of it.
Yeah, it looks like Leo Hudson, the first driver to come across the line, Okage behind him, so drivers starting to get on their flying laps here. Of course, the top 10 shootout for provisional pole here. One driver can go fastest.
Yeah, and who will that one driver be? I mean, I'd love to see a pole being set up right now.
Who's your prediction?
It's either gonna be NVA, Arrow, or Hutsy. I was gonna say Siggy, but I think Hutsy can definitely pull through. Oh, B-Boy Simba goes P5.
Yeah, that's a very good lap from him. An 18.4, that's a big improvement, like 3 or 4/10, so this is super good from him. Looks like the next driver across the line is going to be his teammate, NVA, who's already on provisional pole. He's racing to the line here. We'll see what time he can do. If he can try and secure his position, he improves to a 117.7. That's an incredible time. We'll have to see if any other drivers can answer him, as Arrow's invalidated his lap, so he won't be improving.
Why not?
Leo Hudson across the line can only do a 118.3, and that's put him in P2, so NVA's put in an absolute storming lap.
Yeah, I mean, Hutsy also following up with not even close to 17.
Yeah, but Stars next across the line, P5. Christian Cummins breaks the 118s with a 17.9.
Yeah, so excuse my French, Arrow, not fighting for pole, but Big Elbro sets P5! The
That's a
18-4!
It's a very good result for him, and the last driver to come across the line here is going to be Hokage, at least with a valid lap, so we'll see what he can do.
Oh, no,
But he
he's
comes
out.
into the pit, so he couldn't improve.
So your top 5 right now is NVA, Christian Cummings, Hudson Siggy, and Big Elbro himself, sneaking his way into the top 5.
And of course, the rest of the top 10 being stars, Aaron Green, Keisler, Arrow, and Hokage, so... this is not ideal for Ferrari, who of course is in a constructors fight with Red Bull. Of course, I think NVA can pinch a win here, especially with that lap time. I mean, you'd have to be putting your money on him, but he has both Red Bulls behind him who could not only work together and put pressure on him strategy-wise, but they're going to be scoring points in higher positions than Ferrari will, with both cars at least.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, your top 5, NVA, Christian Cummings, Hudson Siggy, and Big Elbro are going to be starting off front row of NVA and Christian Cummings, Ferrari versus Red Bull. What do you think's going to happen, Seb?
I don't know. We'll see how much these Red Bull drivers want it. Christian Cummins has a lot of places to make up when it comes to the constructors battle. So we'll see how hard he fights his teammate here. But honestly, I think anything could happen on the start here. It's a pretty long run to turn one, and of course, turn one is medium speed, so we could see drivers come together. A lot of understeer. So
Yeah, and I mean, we will see you all in the race starting soon. Okay, and welcome back to another Zoom Racing Elite races. We have lights going out for our first race in D4 in Portimao. And we are off the line. Let's hop on with Hudsy right here, as he's getting a very poor start. I mean, you see Siggy, Big Elbro, just jumping the line, basically. Hudsy going very wide.
the drivers coming into turn one, there was a bit of a collision with McLaren and Ferraris back there. Of course, Siggy and NVA fighting at it. Siggy pulls across the lead. He was on the outside line in turn four. Ben has been disqualified. He was parked in a dangerous location, so that might put him out of, I'm pretty sure that puts him out of the race, but Siggy's come out with a massive lead of an arrow up into P5 behind his teammate. He dives up the inside on turn 5, and he's ahead.
And I mean, ahead he is. I mean, the two Mercedes having a wonderful start. I mean, Envy folding to Siggy. Siggy having an amazing start to the race. Currently on the medium tires, trying to push these tires as hard as he can, trying to break that DRS as quick as possible.
Yeah, and in the back, Arrow is spun, or had a collision with, looks like Christian Cummins.
Oh, you hate to see that. As you see, Christian Cummings also getting sent down the order, also on the medium tires. So Bigger Bro being the only Mercedes in the top 5 right now, pushing hard as we see Stars FPS also gaining a lot of positions off the start.
Bebry gains a position, of course, having that medium tire advantage. Looks like Big Elbro actually loses 2 positions. Stars FPS and Bebry up into 4 and 5. So we have 3 medium tire runners in the top 5 and 2 hard runners.
Yeah, and I mean, we see B-Boy Simba also overtaking Big Elbro, does Big Elbro have front wing damage? He does.
Yeah, he's come into the pits, and Arrow has too, or has Arrow. No, he hasn't, but all the drivers are still incredibly close together. It doesn't look like people going for massive moves. Arrow had a look at that Alpha Tauri of Florida, but decided against it. But of course, Siggy's had a phenomenal start. He's already broken DRS and NVA. Of course, NVA broke DRS behind, so the top three have spread them out from the field behind him.
Oh, a big collision between Stars FPS and B-Boy Simba.
Stars FPS is out of the race. Aaron Green off the track. He's only going to be ahead of Hudsey and Big Elbro, who came into the pits. He's down to P14, but this is a disastrous start for McLaren. Of course, they only had one driver going into this race, and now he's out of the race.
Yeah, and I mean, the two Aston Martins of Pylon and Hokage definitely taking all the advantage from all this chaos that's happening, as a Big Elbro now about 16 seconds behind the pack. Not too bad for a pit stop, but at the same time, what a disastrous start for the top 5. I mean, lots of drivers who were up here now all the way down.
Yeah, and in the back, Christian Cummins is right on the back of Buffalo Trace. He's going to be looking to make a move here after his incident with Arrow. Again, we're not really sure what happened there, but they're coming onto the main straight here. Christian Cummins drops back a little bit, but that might give him the traction and room he needs to get the drive on him.
Yeah, and I mean, Christian Cummins definitely with that lower aero setup, as you can see, gaining on the back of this Alpha Male Buffalo Trace.
Yeah,
definitely looking to make a move, spending a lot of battery.
Yeah, he's pulling around to the left, going into turn 1. He's alongside, and can he brake later? He does. He's into super low gears, but Buffalo manages to carry more speed to the corner and stay ahead of Christian Cummins. Of course, Christian Cummins is going to have an opportunity to try and fight back at him on this next DRS straight. That looks like Hokage and Bebri have come together, so drivers are magnets for one another here.
Yeah, and magnets they are, as at least all drivers have been in some sort of collision. I feel sorry for all the stewards that are happening right now.
Yeah, it's not going to be a good day in the storage room, but of course something to point out is that NVA has started to close that gap on Siggy already. Of course, Siggy having the tire advantage, so NVA really showing his pace here. He only needs a tenth or two to get a DRS here, which is going to be super crucial. You get a ton of time. Of course, basically the entirety of the first sector is DRS straights, so that's super crucial. And of course, he has no pressure from behind, so NVA is free to just push as hard as he can and try and catch up to Siggy. Yeah, and the top three have a massive gap to the rest of the field. We're in a bit of a DRS train led by Gibbs here, but again, Pylon, NVA, and Siggy are showing that they're kind of in a league of their own here.
Yeah, I mean, a league of their own, kind of. I mean, as we had those big switches in the first side of the race, and then all that chaos broke loose. I mean, the amount of tickets we're going to be seeing about that will be decided by the stewards.
K-Seb making a move on Gibbs, who stays around the outside into turn 1. And Arrow's looking to make a positions here too as they go through 3 and 4. K-Seb's gotten ahead. And looks like Arrow's trying to capitalize on Gibbs here. And Arrow gets it ahead. He's gotten a 3-second time penalty for track limits already, though.
Yeah, and I mean, of course, we're seeing a lot of drivers that have been pushing the car a little bit too hard, cutting the track a bit too much, trying to send it on drivers, trying to gain positions.
Yeah, but Keisler and Kevin Magnussen here are really going at it. Of course, Kevin Magnussen was kind of nowhere in quali, getting eliminated in Q1, and he's fought his way all the way up to 8th and now 7th as he overtakes, leading into Sector 2.
And I mean, Florida also looking at the inside of Alfred's Tauri, going around the outside, looking at the Haas as well. Not making too much of an aggressive start right now, but Florida slowly making his way up.
Yeah, and of course the top 3 are spread out, so we're not seeing much action there, but in the fight for P4, Arrow's right behind K-Seb here. Arrow with that 3-second penalty now needs to get his head down, get ahead of these drivers and start building a gap. So he's going to be looking to push his DRS on K-Seb here and see if he can get ahead. He won't break the DRS onto the next straight, but if he can be faster through Sector 2, then he might be able to build a gap here. We'll have to see. Of course, it seems with an 8-second gap to P3, that might be a bit of an ask for him. But he needs to start building this gap here if he doesn't want to fall behind a bunch of people in this train come the end, of course, with a 3-second penalty. But he's done great as he's fought his way back up from practically last, coming together with Christian Cummins in the beginning. And Christian Cummins back up to P10. Both of those drivers have done well. And going into this race, I said that Ferrari were going to have a lot to demand from this race with the Red Bulls right up there. But now those Red Bulls are at the back in 10 and 14. So this has ended up pretty good for Ferrari.
Yeah, I mean, ended up pretty good for Ferrari, but not pretty good for B-Boy Sim, who had collision with Stars FPS. I don't know who's involved, what happened, but Definitely Styles taking the shorter end of the stick on that one, being DNF from the race.
Yeah, and
Kaiser? Kaiser has his win.
yeah, Kaiser at a moment there. So that promotes Christian Cummins and Buffalo Trace's teammate to P9 and 10. But we're seeing a massive train all the way up to P4 here, which is producing some amazing battling for us. As Aaron G is pulling up behind Kaiser here, there might be a move there. Gibbs is very close on K-Seb. We're looking to see where the next move is going to be as Siggy grabs the fastest lap with the 121.8. The pylon right behind him hits a 121.5, so we're seeing some rapid times here, but NBA is doing well on those hard tires to at least keep it going with the medium tire runners there.
Yeah, and I mean, that big gap to the top 3 areas, we have to do a lot of work to let in, especially with that 3-second penalty that has been gifted to him.
Yeah, but
obviously.
Arrow almost pulled out, what was it, a 1 second gap to avoid DRS there. K-Seb behind him just got it, so K-Seb's going to close in on this main straight. I'd be surprised if he was able to make a move, but Arrow is going to have to really push in Sector 2 and try and break that DRS, or he's at risk of getting overtaken again, and he really can't afford to be stuck fighting here. Because there's yellow flags out of the back, it looks like a Williams of Bevry going slow. Hudson can just not get ahead of him.
Yeah, and I mean, you also see the two AlphaTauris of Florida and Gibbs having a quick little battle here, as Florida having so much more pace on Gibbs. Florida definitely slowing down, making sure to make a safe overtake on his teammate.
Yeah, and, you know, we talked about their teammate in qualifying, but it doesn't look like any team orders here. The two are racing. Kaiser, of course, being very respectful for his teammate, not going for any ambitious moves, but he needs to be careful because he has Aaron G behind him. That they want to keep behind and get as many points for their team as they can. Another team that's doing very well is AlphaTauri at 6 and 7 right now. Gibbs and Florida really showing what they can do. And Arrow has pulled out that 1 second gap he needs now with 1.4 seconds of K-Seb. So Arrow's going to try and push and just show the pace he has over the hard tire runners behind him.
Yeah, and I mean, he already is showing the pace, and he is also gaining to Pylon. Pylon and Vansigi also being the ones out of the incidents, as B-Boy Simba trying to go around the outside of Buffalo Trace does not make the move.
Yeah, and we have a lot of fighting here down in 6 and 7. Looks like 4 cars were involved. We're missing a lot of the action today.
I mean,
As Christian Cummins looks for a move on Gibbs, but he just can't quite make it stick. Gibbs still getting more traction as Kevin Magnuson goes wide. He's not going to be able to get that position there. Hopefully he avoided track limits. He stays behind Christian Cummins, who will still be looking to make moves on Gibbs, but any overtaking opportunities in Sector 2 are really not a thing, as looks like Buffalo Trace and Aaron Green are fighting behind, coming into Sector 2. As Bevry behind gets a 3-second penalty.
Yeah, and I mean, we're starting to see the cars kind of like the delta's kind of widened so far. I mean, the only people we're seeing so close in DRS positions 9, 8, 7, and 6. Up to 2 AlphaTauris leading this DRS stream. Oh, sorry, K-Seb leading this DRS stream, my bad.
Yeah.
Arrow as well, pulling that gap, making sure he gets nice and close to the back of Pylon, which is not going to be happening because of that 11-second gap due to certain incidents that happened during the race.
Yeah, I mean, I think with the incidents we've seen, a safety car would definitely be possible. I mean, we were definitely lucky to not see a safety car with Stars FPS DNFing from this race, but the field has finally started to spread out besides Christian Cummins, who is right behind Gibbs again. So this battle down in P7 is still going on. Of course, Kevin Magnuson is also up in the P9, so a great race for him so far, but he's going to be looking to pass Christian Cummins too and get some needed points for Haas, who's currently last in the Constructors by almost 30 points.
Yeah, and it'd be good race. I'll see the group difference between these medium tires and hard tires. As Christian Cummins gets nice and close to the back of Gibbs, Gibbs holding off, doing a really good job of protecting the team order right now. Not team what is and what is being told, but team what is and the positions being held. Definitely helping out the team a lot here by keeping Christian on.
Yeah, for sure.
As we have a yellow flag. Arrow is in the wall with a no front wing as well.
He is a front wing on my screen. We'll see if he comes into the pits. I'm not seeing any damage, but that's very unfortunate for Arrow. Of course, he's now going to have to fight his way back through the field with a 3-second time penalty, so that's very bad for him. And any spins on those mediums is bad, as you really need to extend that stint as long as you can, and he's under massive pressure from Buffalo Trace and Aaron Green behind him. Aaron Green looking to make a move on the final turn on Buffalo Trace. He just gets more traction. His arrow's coming to the pits. Looks like he did have damage, but that was an amazing move from Aaron Green. Not where I'd be expecting to see any overtaking maneuvers, but he pulled it off.
Yeah, pulled it off he did, as Christian Cummins is trying to pull up the overtake of himself. Trying to get around him, so he's still holding him up. Yeah, Christian Cummins getting nice and close to the back of that AlphaTauri, getting a good look at that gearbox that he can't seem to stop looking at.
Yeah, but you know, that DRS train is doing what it does, and I think just preventing Christian Cummins from getting close enough, so he might have just picked up track limits there. But I think it might come down to he's going to have to make an incredibly ambitious move to get ahead here, and of course, he's on medium tires, so he's losing serious race time being stuck behind these hard tire runners here. But the top three are continuing to build out an insane gap. Those three might actually end up hitting ahead of the rest of the field.
Yeah, they might actually stop hitting ahead of the rest of the field as Pylon catches to the DRS and NVA, and says the fastest lap, probably using a lot of his battery, which he is. He's only at 14%.
Yeah, so Pylon is pushing right now. Is he already in lap traffic?
Oh, this Pylon has a little bit of a... Oh, as Christian Cummins got ahead of... Oh, Christian Cummins got ahead of Gibbs. Gibbs doing well to avoid collision. But Christian Cummins absolutely emptying his battery to get past Gibbs.
Yeah, and I mean, that's what you really have to do in a DRS train. So Christian Cummins, who's almost dropped to... or is dropping to only have a 1 second gap. He needs DRS here. All that battery usage is going to be a waste, and he's going to have to fall behind and charge again. Of course, he just needs to sit behind Florida now, but he's losing a ton of race time. So the sister team to Red Bull is not doing Christian Cummins any favors. Of course, there's no team alliances here.
Yeah, no team alliances at all. So these Red Bulls and AlphaTauri are going to have a nice, long, and strenuous fight as Florida himself is getting closer and closer to the back of K7.
Yeah, and Florida just needs to keep it real close here so he can try and get a run on the main straight here. He's very close. He just needs to keep it to these last final corners. 4/10 might be enough to get it in the first straight, but he's dropped a big amount of time, so K-Seb looks like he's just able to get that little bit more traction than Florida out of the final corner, which allows him to keep him behind, but Florida's massively spending his battery. He might run out by the end of the straight here, but he really wants to get ahead of K-Seb. He must think he has a bit more pace in the engine.
Not only a bit more pace, but, I mean, get away from the medium tire run. I mean, I don't think he wants to be the one being getting slowed down by doing wheel-to-wheel with a medium tire run, as he sends a very ambitious move around the inside, and he makes it. He makes it. And
looks like Christian Cummins might be sneaking through, but he gets forced to the outside line. Definitely not optimal there. We'll see who can get better traction. Looks like K-Seb was squeezed a little bit and had to take that apex, so now he's under pressure from Gibbs, who's ahead of him. It's going to be a game of who can break later, and looks like the cars are going 3 wide at the turn 5. Oh, and K-Seb gets knocked. He was just squeezed there, so the sports will definitely be looking at that. It's hard to tell who's at fault. Of course, going 3 wide, you have to leave the room. Gibbs getting very close to Kevin Magnussen, but, I mean, I don't think that was going to work. Turn 5 pinches so much.
And I mean, also Gibbs getting a lot better medium speed through minimum speed through that corner, but also those medium tires having that just overall necessary better traction.
Yeah, but this is very good for Florida and Christian Cummins because Kevin Magnussen has fallen at the DRS. This is going to allow these two to jump each other with DRS and try and build a gap on the DRS train, at least if they play it smart. They're not going to fight each other too hard.
Oh, it's NV gets ahead of C?
Yeah, well, I think NVA's just started to catch up. Those hard tires might be coming into their own. So we missed the battle for the lead. We were enamored with that DRS train, bringing us some of the best fighting I think we've seen all season.
And I mean, the DRS train that has quote-unquote ended is still happening with Florida and Christian, who are still battling out for people.
Yeah, and of course, we need to watch the gap in Sector 2 here. Looks like NBA is starting to pull out, but this is really going to tell us where the tires are. If NBA is able to pull out a gap here in Sector 2, then he definitely has better tires, but I don't think he's going to break DRS on Siggy, who might give him try and attack him this lap. Siggy with about 10% less battery, almost 20 now, than NVA, so both drivers are really not going to be able to deploy that much, and of course Pylon behind them is going to be hoping these two drivers can keep battling and let him catch up and get stuck in. We could have a DRS train for the top 3 here and a big fight. And so Kage Rolde with the fastest lap in the back, he's on actually pretty old medium, so that's a really good lap from him, and he still has 50% of his battery.
Yeah, I mean, he only still has 50% of his battery, but I mean, NVA definitely going to be making a nice sizable gap to Siggy right now, who's struggling on these medium tires.
Yeah. Florida's doing a decent job of keeping it in DRS of Christian Cummins right now. We'll see if he can get the traction out of the final corners. Gibbs overtakes Case. Oh, Case up is spun. Looks like a bit of his front wing came off, but he's down in the P10. He might be coming back into the pits. He's going to have to decide whether he can hold it out or not. I'm not sure what came off the front wing there, but definitely not what you wanted to see. As
That's
Okaki
Kevin
rolled, they
Magnussen.
spun in the back.
That's Kevin Magnussen also hopped into the pits. Kind of an early pit stop from the Magnussen guy, but actually this can work.
It can work. I think he might need a late safety car to really make it work. Those hard tires are probably going to be screaming by the end of the race. But as we, never mind. Yeah, so the field is really spread out here, and this is one of the things with Portugal is because of how low grip it is. I think it's very hard to follow. But when do you think we're going to start seeing drivers start to pit here?
I mean, around laps 12 to 15 should be around medium tires pitting, and laps 16 to 22 should be for hard tires. I mean, it depends how long you want to stretch this thing.
Yeah, and I hate to interrupt you, but Hudzy and Kevin Magnussen are going at it. Kevin Magnussen on those fresh hard tires, they're still cold. They fought each other through turns 1, 2, 3, and 4. But they're going to sector 2 now. Kevin is gonna need to get those tires warm to try and close up on Hudson here.
Yeah, and I mean, as we starting to see these drivers starting to pit for different tires. I mean, Pylon and Kevin Magnussen definitely one of the first few guys on different compounds.
At the front, Siggy's incredibly close to NVA on the second straight here. They're going to be going into turn 5. Siggy's right behind him, getting that slipstream, but he just can't. He does not have the straight line speed to pull ahead of NVA's. NVA goes wide. Not sure if he picked up track limits there, but Siggy didn't manage to get ahead from that.
Yeah, I mean, these track limit penalties is something you don't want, especially since the safety car can come out and literally make your whole race invalidated due to time penalties.
Yeah, and they're very common here. I mean, 6 drivers already have time penalties, and 2 of them have been. I mean, that's a third of the field that we have on track right now. So
And
I
mean,
think we might go on.
I mean, let's not forget that also we've seen a lot of these front runners and a lot of these guys who don't have penalties still getting warnings from going extremely wide on some corners.
Yeah, I mean, it's very hard to manage. I think we could end up seeing most, if not all, drivers ending up with penalties by the end, as we're getting close to half race distance here. Once again, Siggy incredibly close behind NVA going into turn 1. We'll see if NVA can get it closer. Before he was 4 tenths behind, didn't have the run. He's closing around 3 tenths now, but it's going to be down to the run he can get out of turn 4. He doesn't have a ton of battery to play with here. He's deploying a little. He's 4 tenths behind. He wasn't able to make that work before. He is on the medium tire. We're not sure if that is more grip than NVA's at this point, but it has to be getting to that point. So Siggy can just not make that late braking move to try and get ahead of the NVA. But of course, as his medium tires start to fall off, just letting NVA drag him along is really good for his race time against Pylon, who's coming to the pits and is now behind Aaron Green. So he'll be looking to make an overtake and start making advantage of those new tires. He really can't afford to lose race time here, as he needs to be undercutting the 2 drivers in front.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of these drivers are starting to overcut, extend these stints really long so that they can get a nice, good pit stop window going. But Siggy opting to want to try to stick with NVA for as long as possible. I mean, especially on the medium hards, where you want to be like kind of hitting a bit earlier to undercut these tires that are basically worn out, fresh hards versus older hards. But Siggy opting to oh no, as he goes
Siggy's into the pits. Something important to note here is that NVA has been keeping up with Siggy almost the whole time besides the opening lap on hard tires, so I think NVA has an exceptional amount of pace here.
Yeah, and NVA definitely going to be showing it soon.
Yeah, and Siggy might come out ahead of Christian Cummins here, which would be insane. Insane that the top 2 drivers have pitted into clean air. It looks like Siggy isn't gonna quite get it. I think just him and Florida, or maybe Keisler too, who's closed that gap to Florida. We've not been keeping track of that one, but he's done it exceptionally. Siggy is gonna be under massive pressure from Keisler here, manages to get ahead. But of course, Siggy's gonna have DRS going up that pit straight, which is super important on those cold tires. that's going to allow him to claw back some of that time and try and make this undercut work on NVA. Of course, if I'm NVA, knowing my pace, I'm just going to try and extend this stint by as much as I can, wait for either a safety car to come out or just decide it's time and get the most we can out of the medium tires.
That is very true. We see Preview pitting as well, back in the field to his hard tires now.
Yeah, and of
so
course,
Christian Cummings opting to stay out as well on the medium tires. May not be the strongest strategy, but definitely trying to push all time out of those mediums, as we see Pylon also getting another 3 seconds.
Yeah, that puts Pylon up to 8 seconds in penalties, so.
It's crazy.
Yeah. I think the closest battle we have is Pylon and Aaron G here.
Oh, yeah, that is true.
As that's a Mercedes around. Looks like Big Elpro went off. I'm not sure if he made contact with anyone, as Christian Cummings gets a 5-second penalty.
Speeding in the pit lane.
Speeding in the pit lane. This is great for Florida, who of course has been fighting with him. Florida with 3 seconds, so that gives him the advantage over Christian Cummings. Florida's going to just be looking to extend the stint now and see if he can't stay ahead of Christian Cummings, but if not, he should be able to just close that gap right back up to at least within 2 seconds, and he can gain that position on Christian Cummings.
Yeah, and I mean, the switches that are happening in the field right now, I mean, a lot of things are going on, a lot of penalties being dished out, a lot of people being spun. I mean, what can we see so far?
Yeah, I mean, I think this race is proving to be incredibly unpredictable. So if I was the gambling man, I would not be gambling on this race, to be honest.
That is true. This race has been very shifty for so far, as we've seen people gain many positions and lose them at the same time. Also, NBA seems to be making a gap towards Florida, so NBA looking to be pitting now, and he is into the pits, lap 17, sorry, not 16.
Yeah, and he did not speed into the pit lane, so he's doing well there. Throwing on the medium tires, of course. Looked like a good stop from Ferrari, so he'll be coming out, and he may actually be coming out ahead of Florida. But if he doesn't, that's actually a good position for him if he can steal a little bit of DRS off of him. But, oh, it's going to be close.
Oh, it is going to be close.
Incredibly close. They might actually be side by side in the turn one. As looks like Heisler pulls ahead. No battery on. Oh, never mind. I'm a bit blind, I suppose.
Remember, Florida is on quote unquote better tires with his temperatures definitely being in range, but
yeah, Siggy behind gets ahead of Florida, but this is actually played wonderfully into NVA's hands. Siggy just got caught in traffic, and he's had at least 2 cars put in between him and NVA, so NVA is just going to be able to warm up his tires here and start getting time on Siggy with, I think, the superior amount of pace he showed.
Yeah, and I mean, the superior amount of space is going to start to show on those medium tires.
Yeah, but towards the back, Aaron Green is just not able to make progress on Pylon here, but Pylon will be looking to make progress on Gibbs here, who's on 17-lap-old tires. He needs to be getting past him. I mean, this car is just holding him up.
I mean, Pylon definitely suffering from penalties currently, and B-Boy Simba definitely wanting to make the most out of these tires in this pit stop.
Yeah, and Florida, who's really extending his stint here, is Siggy right behind him. Siggy should pull ahead easily with the DRS, but hopefully Florida can keep it close into turn 1. So he gets that DRS on the second straight into turn 5, and that'll help him with his overcut on Christian Cummings, who, again, got a 5-second penalty coming into the pits.
Yes,
that looks like Heisler and Aaron Green into the pits.
And B-Boy Simba definitely taking it extremely easy into the pits, not liking to take any risks.
Yeah, of course. For anyone who doesn't know, B-Boy Simba is Aaron Green on, I believe, his Xbox account.
Aaron G is an Xbox player.
You heard it here first, breaking on ZRL.
Alfa Romeo drama?
Well, we're seeing Alfa Romeos and Red Bull's getting into a bit of drama here. They're fighting hard for positions 6 through 8. Saw a bunch of cars exceeding track limits. They're really going at it here.
Yeah, and I mean, Kai's at the back of Hudson, definitely pushing on and showing that he isn't here to play as he locks up.
Yeah, and he I don't know if you saw, but hey, at the back we have a Haas and a Mercedes together. Looks like there must have been an incident there, but Kevin Magnussen and Arrow are just having a disastrous races here.
Yeah, sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you get unlucky. It's just how races go. I mean, not how we, it's not how you, it's not about how you fail. It's about how you get back up. You know, hashtag slow we rise. We learned that here in Mercedes team very well. We fall
Team
many
LH,
times.
Team LH.
Team
But if we want to
LH.
go back on board with Hudsey here, he's incredibly close behind Buffalo Trace, and he has significantly more battery. He's probably going to be looking to make the move here. He's going to be coming under pressure from Keisler on brand new mediums behind him. So he's actually making those mediums go longer than people are making the hards go. All right, looks like Florida lost a couple positions behind Hudsey. We have Luke just stepping away for a second, so we're going to be staying on board with Hudsey here, looking at this battle between him and Keisler. Keisler 4/10 behind going on to the second straight. So Keisler does not have a lot of battery to play with. He's only on 6%, while Hudsey's on 75, so Hudsey is managing greatly here. And looks like Keisler can just knock it ahead. And of course, Florida on new medium tires is going to be looking to catch up to both of them as they battle it out. So Keisler needs to basically decide, can I clear this car, or do I need to just stick behind and try and keep Florida behind? As they're running through Sector 2 here, it's an incredibly technical sector. The car gets very loose in some corners, so you can put drivers under a lot of pressure, similar to how you make overtakes at Monaco, which is basically forcing people to crash. It's actually an incredibly viable strategy here, as Keisler's 2/10 behind Hudsey going into the final quarter. We'll see who can get better traction. Keisler is right on the gearbox of Hudsey. He starts to try and pull alongside, but he's going to get DRS here. He's very close. This could be the run for him, but he doesn't have a lot of battery to play with. Hudsey is not breaking the toe. Keisler is right there. Is he going to move to the left? He doesn't. He decides better off. He's going to try and get that DRS on the second straight and try and make a move in the turn 5, I imagine. He's right there. The tire advantage is really starting to set in. Hudsey's tires must be falling off now, and he needs to pit soon. As they go up the final straight, again, Keisler trying to get close, but it looks like he just can't close that distance. Hudsey's doing very well to manage here and keep him behind him. And this is just showing that Portugal can be an incredibly difficult track to overtake in. The Kage Rolde sets a fastest lap on new medium tires he's decided to go on, so he's sick of the back, but he's making the most of it, just making sure he has grip, and of course, finishing the race here is incredibly valuable as everyone gets points, so you can finish the race, you're still doing something for your team, even if you're struggling. But again, Keisler is close behind Hudsey, but it's just not sure he can make it happen. Yeah, and again, Keisler just does not have the top-end speed of that Red Bull, but Leo Hudson goes wide on turn 1, but Keisler is not able to capitalize. He goes down to first gear for turn 3. Incredibly low gears from the D4 driver, and he had to lift in turn 4 because Leo Hudson was so much slower than him, but he just doesn't have the battery to make this move happen here. He could go for a late-braking lunge. He does. He's on the inside. It looks like Leo Hudson is trying to keep it around the outside, see if he can get better traction, but Keisler gets the drive, and Keisler's made the overtake so he can start taking advantage of those new tires. That's incredible. Leo Hudson, of course, still having to pit. He's extended the stint an incredibly long time. He's been on those mediums for 20 laps. And, you know, Leo Hudson might be thinking he needs to try and hold it out for a safety car. Of course, he had to pit at the beginning after contact, but honestly, at this point, the field is so spread out, he'll still be in a decent position if he pits now. And those tires cannot hold on for much longer, and Amardi might start getting into puncture range here. As Keisler's already managed to pull the DRS gap out of Leo Hudson, it looks like he went wide. Hopefully he didn't get track limits there. As we're still waiting on Luke Locklear as this battle behind us closes in, Leo Hudson comes into the pits. Florida is going to be looking to get on the tail of Keisler here. He's one lap older tires, and he wants to be making up positions here, and he needs to catch up to Christian Cummins, who managed to undercut him. As ASEP behind passes Leo Hudson as Leo Hudson picks it. Looked like a good stop from Red Bull. Leo Hudson has thrown the medium tires on. I don't believe he'll fall behind Kevin Magnussen, but it's going to be very close. No, Kevin Magnussen manages to get ahead of him, and Buffalo Trace might as well. And of course, going to Sector 2, we have Gibbs right behind Aaron Green. He needs to close this gap here to try and make a move on the final straight as they're going through turn 7 up into turn 8. Of course, the car gets really loose. It's that uphill right-hander. You just need to get maximum traction as you take the apex of a hill and then go into a quick left-hander. But looks like Gibbs could just not close that gap on Aaron Green here. And I don't think he'll be able to make the move coming to the straight. Of course, he closed by 2/10, but that might not be enough. And of course, for the sake of the broadcast and what we see, we ought to hope that Florida can pull behind Keisler here, and we'll get to watch some of this battle. The gap is honestly staying pretty similar, so Florida probably needs to activate a little bit more for that pace, and he doesn't have any batteries, so he really needs to pick it up. But Gibbs has managed to get within 4/10 of Aaron Green into turn 1, so he might be able to make a move on the second straight into turn 5. They're going through turn 2 and leading up to 3 and 4, which are kind of sequential corners here, because the grip on turn 4 is incredibly low, so seeing what traction you get, especially when following, is super important. Of course, Gibbs has some battery to play with here, far more than Aaron Green does, but he doesn't decide to use any. It looks like Gibbs is just sticking behind Aaron Green and biding his time. Is behind Leo Hudson, and P12 managed to get ahead above Buffalo Trace. So Leo Hudson will be looking to close a 4.5 second gap to Kevin Magnussen in P11, but after that it's an 8.9 second gap to P10, and without a safety car, I don't know if Leo Hudson will manage to close that gap by the end of the race. Of course, we have about 8 laps left in this Grand Prix. Of course, anything can happen, but we haven't had a safety car come out yet, which is quite astonishing considering the amount of incidents we've had. Not even a virtual safety car. So D4 is doing a very good job to keep it clean tonight. And once again, between Keisler and Florida, neither of them can, or rather,
Hudson's fun.
Oh my god, he did. Well, I talked about him not being able to make it to P11 now, but I don't know that he can make it back up to P12.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, what happened so far, Seb? Give me a little update so far.
Yeah, a little update. I didn't even remember who was fighting Keisler, but they managed to get ahead. It's all just really becoming a blur. Of course, NBA's pulled a massive gap on Siggy here. He really had that pace, and I mean, he was faster on the hard tires, so that's what you expect to see. I think what Siggy needs here is a safety car. And that's true for a lot of our drivers. Air's done well to get into 10th. He just needs to make sure he doesn't spin again. And of course, Aaron Green has just been stuck behind Gibbs. He's not able to close that gap. Or no, maybe Gibbs was stuck behind Aaron Green. Of course, you came back and he stopped me, and I've just completely forgotten what's been happening in this sensational Grand Prix.
Yes, I'm so sorry about that. As you can see, B-Boy Simmer definitely getting close to the back of Gibbs right now in that DRS zone, so we need to see some action happening here.
Yeah, I mean, that's the gap he's been holding at. I don't know if he's going to have the straight line to get ahead. I mean, honestly, since that Keisler overtake happened, really nothing. The field is incredibly spread out right now, which I think is kind of the nature of Portugal.
Yeah, nature of Portugal it is, but so far looking at the standings compared to all of this, we can definitely see some big moves from Mercedes in the wrong direction, but also some big moves from Ferrari in the very, very, very good direction. Great race for the AlphaTauri so far. I mean, Red Bull having a very, very uncharacteristic race as Hudson gets a 3-second time penalty, and I mean, AlphaTauri I think are my team of the race.
They might be. I mean, we'll have to wait and see. We still have plenty of laps left. Of course, looking at the constructors, another team doing very well is Williams. Of course, they're even on points with Alfa Romeo and only one off of Alpine, but they're in P9, so these points could be super valuable to moving them up early in these rounds. And I want to mention that Ferrari having a good race is not a surprise. What's making Ferrari's race so good right now, and of course, hopefully we don't commentators curse them. Of course, now that I've said it, there's no way it can happen, is that Red Bull is having a really not great race. Christian Cummins is stuck off the podium, and Hudson's down to P14, and I mean, he's been spinning quite a bit, so we might see that again. something to note here is the lap car of Bebry is Siggy coming up behind him. Bebry does well to get out of the way, so we're not seeing any shenanigans like we saw in D2 last season between lap cars just refusing to get out of the way.
Yeah, and I mean, B-Boy Simba definitely not being able to maintain that gap to Gibbs, so Gibbs and Florida definitely going to be enjoying some nice positions this race if B-Boy Simba hasn't able to respond with anything.
For sure.
And I mean, again, people, this is the closing stages of the race. It's Portimao. There's a lot of big gaps here. Nothing much is happening, but definitely much has happened in the first set of the race where we saw lots of incidents, lots of positional changes. How much do you think tickets are going to come into this?
Oh, I mean, to be honest, we were kind of bad at our jobs. We missed a lot of the incidents. So it's very hard to say. I really didn't have eyes on any of them, but I mean, I think the tickets will be made, particularly Stars. This is the second week in a row that he's just been absolutely screwed in the open on the first lap. And of course, important to note that whoever is at fault, that's a double penalty for them. But I think the big fight to look out for is Florida has a 3-second penalty, so he needs to keep a 3-second gap to his teammate behind Gibbs, who is clean. Of course, Keisler also looking like he'll be promoted ahead of Christian Cummins as things stand now, because Christian Cummins is a 5-second penalty. But at this point, we're kind of looking at a bit of a boring part of the race until stuff happens. So I don't know. What do you want to talk about, Luke? What do you think D3 is going to be like?
I think D3 is going to be a lot of the same. Actually, not going to lie, a lot of incidents. Portugal is a very it's a track that lies. It lies about its script, and it lies about its space. A lot of drivers think they have a lot of room to work with, but you don't. A lot of corners close off, as we can see the entry of turn 5 here. Nice and wide, but then gets really tight on exit because the car can't really have all that rotation. So really, it's a track full of lies, and you kind of have to interpret it as a race.
Yeah, but to be honest, I think turn 5 is really the only good overtaking point. Just because it's a straight braking zone. Everywhere else, like turn 1, the turn in can get super scary, and you're forced to basically drop low gears so you don't understeer. And nothing really works into turn 1 without taking a massive risk. So, I mean, I think part of the reason we're seeing this Grand Prix spread out so much is not only that it's hard to follow, but you can't make overtakes. And when you start losing race time, but also getting desperate, that you're behind a slow car that you just can't clear, and you make this stupid move, and it causes an incident, the field tends to spread out like this.
Yeah, let's go in a little bit more cinematic mode. I mean, positional changes aren't really happening right now, and the only close battle we're having right now is between RNG and Gibbs. So hopefully we can see some nice looking shots from them coming into this race. I mean, car's starting to look a little bit dusty from that Portugal dust being hot sunny day.
If you want, we could go on board with the NVA for a lap of Portimao. Of course, he does have some lapped cars ahead of him, but they should be getting out of the way.
It doesn't seem to be they getting out of the way. I think they're in currently a fight, so they're not going to be interested in letting one of each other going slowly through. So they're going to be definitely getting some penalties.
Yeah, but speaking of that fight, Hokage pulls to the right of Buffalo Trace. He manages to get ahead well before turn 1. Buffalo Trace closes it in a little bit, but it looks like Hokage is ahead. Of course, Buffalo Trace is going to try and fight him back, getting very close in turn 3 up the second straight towards turn 5. But yeah, Buffalo does well to get out of the way of NVA, so good on him for doing so, and hopefully that'll incentivize Hokage to get out of the way.
Yeah, Hokage doesn't seem to be letting out so much, still sitting in front of the Mercedes car for a bit too long. It's been about half a lap so far. Hokage should be definitely thinking.
I mean, I think Hokage actually did break the blue flags at one point, and now he's gotten out of the way. So that looked above the belt in my book, but yeah, NVA's out in clear air again, so I think that might actually give us a great opportunity to go on board and see what he's been doing that's given him so much pace.
Yeah, I mean, let's hop back on with B-Boy Simba, also known as RNG. Nothing. Oh, as Aero gets ahead of K7.
Yeah, so much for the closing stage of this race being boring. Of course, Aero does still have a 3-second penalty, and K7 can fight him back, but Aero's just hoping to get in some clean air and see if he can't try and pull that gap. in the closing stages of the race.
I mean, B-Boy Simba also just getting close to the back of that AlphaTauri, but never getting past it.
Yeah, and I think that has to be set up in straight line speed. And he is recharging his battery, so he might be trying to make a move at the end. Of course, at this point, he does have more than Gibbs. So maybe he's just biding his time, and he knows he can squeeze it out in the last lap and gain that position.
Yeah, we'll see sometime soon, as top 3 seems to be staying the same. So your top 3, if nothing ever happens to them, no commentator skills, hopefully, it's going to be end race again final. So Ferrari, Williams, and Aston Martin.
Yeah, but in the back, Hudson and Buffalo Trace are going at it as they go into Sector 2. I thought Hudson was going to dive into Turn 8, which would be an insane move, to be honest, but he's getting right on the gearbox of Buffalo Trace. He's just able to break that little bit later, and we're going to see him as they come in the final quarter. Of course, the first sector is really where you have to make those overtakes happen with the DRS, and Buffalo Trace isn't going to have it as Hudson just is coming around the final quarter. He's going to try and get more traction. He's in third gear. He's probably not on the throttle as early as he could be. Yeah, he's starting to lose a little bit of time to Buffalo Trace, but he has the battery to play with. They'll see if he tries it here to close in. He does. He throws the battery on. He's up into 8th gear, DRS open, and that looks like Buffalo Trace is on extremely low batteries, absolutely no straight line speed. And Leo Hudson just cannot brake late enough at the turn 1, but he fights it back, moves back in, and he might be ahead going into turn 2, but no, he hits the inside curb. They're still going at it. And Leo Hudson is ahead of Buffalo Trace, but Buffalo Trace is going to be able to fight it back with the second straight. He'll be looking to break later at the turn 9, but Hudson just gets a better run with an exceptional fight through the first couple of corners.
And I mean, this just shows you the pace of a tire difference, basically. I mean, Hudson on fresher tires than Buffalo Trace. Those tires do come into play, especially around these low grip tracks. I mean, Hudson definitely putting in that gap already. I mean, already getting that 1 second gap that he requires to make sure that he seals his deal.
Yeah, and of course that fight probably won't end up being for position, as Hudson does have 6 seconds in penalties, but you definitely feel better when you end ahead on track. Of course,
I'm just going to remind you that B-Boy Simba has one of the best runs of his life.
Aaron G is going to make a move at the turn 5. He tries to break later. He's on the apex, squeezing Gibbs to the outside. Gibbs just gets a slightly better run, but he's going to keep trying it. Gibbs cannot get fully ahead. Aaron backs out. He might try and switch it back at the turn 8, but it looks like Gibbs just manages to keep it ahead. Aaron really cannot get ahead of him, but he's right behind him for the rest of Sector 2, so going on to the final straight, he might be able to make the move.
Yeah, and Aaron definitely doing a great job with preserving battery and using it in the specific times that he needs it. Definitely doing a great job of battery management, showing that it's important to take all these things into account.
Yeah, and of course they'll be going on to the last lap, so we'll see what they can do. The move is going to have to happen here for Aaron, or it won't happen. He's 4/10 behind on the main straight. He has a 40% of battery to play with versus Gibbs 20%, so he definitely has more as he starts throwing battery on exit. He keeps that toe as Gibbs tries to break it. Gibbs deploying his battery. They're now even, but Aaron G just has so much more straight line as the outside of turn 1. He manages to pull ahead, and Gibbs spins! He hit the curb on the inside of turn 1. He's going to have to try and keep it ahead of Arrow here, and that's super unfortunate for Gibbs. We would have loved to see those two fight it out to the end, but if we go to P1, the man who has run an impeccable race, had the insane amount of pace, he comes around the final turn, up to the finish line, he goes to the inside, NVA has won the D4 Portugal Grand Prix. Siggy is 12 seconds behind, he's only coming around the final quarter now, but he's ran an exceptional race. As we're now waiting, looks like some position changes due to penalties at the back, with cars who were a lap behind Buffalo Trace and Hudson.
Yeah, and I mean, Kevin Magnussen, Hokage Rowley, Buffalo Trace, and Hudson. Two of those drivers, Hokage Rowley and Hudson specifically, not having the best of times. I mean, definitely a poor performance compared to their qualifying pace.
Yeah, but Pylon comes across the line with 8 seconds of penalties, but he keeps his podium, so an exceptional drive from him. Christian Cummins, who had a great recovery race, falling to last at the beginning. Keisler gets promoted due to penalties, but he ran a great race too, continuing that pace he showed in qualifying. Florida with a great result in P6, Aaron Green with a great result for Ferrari in P7. Of course, Gibbs coming across the line now. A great race for AlphaTauri. This will shoot them up to constructors. They'll definitely overtake Mercedes, who had a disaster. So it's Arrow coming across. That's the final drivers coming through as the race is over. And
Yeah, and
we'll have a look at your finishing positions before penalties. But what do you think about that race, Thermo?
chaotic to say the least. I mean, D4 races are normally considered the most clean races, but this race definitely showed some of the ugly sides of D4.
Yeah, and might be a bad sign for the divisions to come.
Yeah, as Portugal is not a fun track to. It is a fun track to race on, but it's not a fun track to get pushed. It's not. It's a track that you can't really extend your attacking too much, or else you're either losing significant amount of time or pushing each other off track because of corners that seem to look wider than they are.
Yeah, for sure. But as we go ahead and look at the finishing positions, we have NVA in P1 with the fastest lap, 6 tenths faster than anyone else. Siggy in P2 and Pylon in P3 for Aston Martin, finishing off the podium. A great result for Williams with Siggy. In fourth, we have Keisler from Christian Cummins, then Florida, Aaron Green, Gibbs, Kaseb, Arrow, Kevin Magnussen, Hokage Rolde, Buffalo Trace, Leo Hudson, Big Elbro, Bebry, and Stars FPS and Ben did not finish the race. Ben getting disqualified on lap one and Stars getting taken out at the beginning of the race. So an awful weekend for Alpine and Mercedes.
Yeah, and
I mean,
a
awful
great
for Alpine. Kseb did get a top 10, to be very fair to him.
yeah, and great
But
for these top three drivers of NBA Game Pile, and who you will hear in just a moment after the short break.
Bro.
Pylon,
Yo, what's up?
that was a really strong race from you. You guys showed a lot of pace. What are your thoughts?
It's an old school top three, man. I'm so happy with it. Like NVA and Siggy are my boys, so I'm glad they got the win in the second place. But it was hard fought battle those first few laps, and then I got stuck in a undercut situation, and I came out in traffic. By the way, that pit exit is so trash.
Yup.
It's insane.
It
I had to commit to the apex, and I got like shuffled into a battle, and I couldn't gap them, so
yeah.
cost me a lot.
So, of course, it's no secret that you had 8 seconds in penalties.
Yeah,
How did that happen, and how did that affect the way you drove the race? Of course, you kept an amazing gap to Christian Cummins behind, but like, how did
I
that?
had to. Yeah, yeah. Well, the speed in the pits is because I only practiced this like the last 2 weeks with about 40 laps of time trial. Never once went in the pit lane. So my first pit lane entries were in the qualies.
Okay.
So like I didn't know with the worn meds. I braked. I have the guideline on, and I broke like a full car length before it told me to brake, and I somehow still sped in the pits. So I was like, oh fuck! Now all I have to do is like hope I get P3 by driving a clean race. So that was that.
Yeah. Well, a great race, Luke. Do you have any questions?
No,
I mean, surprising to say the least, Pylon. From your qualifying pace, I wasn't really expecting you to be up here fighting so close to the front, but I mean, you proved me wrong again and again, each race in and out. So I mean, congratulations for the least.
Thank you, but quality is not my forte. I don't practice, so I have race pace, but quality I barely practice. So don't expect me to be pole or top five most races, but expect me to be up there in every race, though.
Yeah, and that's great. So congratulations, Palin, once again. We'll love to see you on this podium a lot more
Thank
coming
you
in these
guys.
next
Thanks for
few
casting.
races. Yeah,
Yeah,
no
thank you
problem.
for the interview.
You're welcome. See.
Next,
Okay.
we have our P2 sitter for Williams. An amazing race from him, too. He showed an incredible amount of pace to anyone behind him. It's Siggy. Siggy, that was a great race from you. What are your thoughts?
It's a miracle.
So safe to say you're pretty ecstatic with it.
Yeah, I mean for Williams, like thinking it's a back market team, and then we pulled out a pretty good finish. Yeah, it's felt good.
Yeah, and y'all are coming back from being P9 and D4 constructors. This should drag you up the standings significantly. Can you speak to what that means for the team?
It means a very happy Garrett because I didn't switch to wheel because he was like, "Oh, if you switch to wheel, you're throwing away the season." But no, I can't make him sad. Poor guy.
Now, you and NVA showed an incredible amount of pace to the rest of field. I mean, the gap you guys build at, I mean, especially you at a turn one, you just like got ahead of NVA and already were out of DRS range of him. Where did that pace come from? Have you done a lot of practice, or did it just come naturally to you around Portugal?
I must have practiced the most for this race. Not in for any reason in particular. It was just I had a lot of time and I practiced at least a couple hours a day. NVA just had way better lap for lap pace, so it was shocking actually that he passed, and then he was actually pulling me along after on hard. So I was like, all right, I'll take that.
Yeah, I mean, that's not.
Is that Luke? You just muted there.
Sometimes Luke gets camera shy when they're
I
on,
gotcha. Yeah.
but yeah, that was a really great result from you,
Yeah.
and amazing for Williams. I just want to ask, is this like Belgium? Are you crying right now?
Uh, Not Belgium 2021. Where the one really started. It was more like Abu Dhabi, George
Okay,
Russell, but
Yeah,
not P1.
okay,
yeah, and I mean,
but
one more question for you, Siggy. I mean,
Yeah.
after we saw that first 3 laps of chaos, I mean, what are your thoughts on the driving standards in D4, and have they been depreciating over these couple of races?
I think that not everyone gets enough time to practice. And then we have, NVA, probably myself and a few others that don't really belong in D4. We're probably like a solid D3. But if this is the only time available, then it is what it is. And
Okay,
I hope,
Siggy. Okay, go ahead.
Mhm.
Sorry.
No, I hope that sense kind of tries to pull everybody up, so that way they go faster. Because I remember starting D3, and then as the seasons went on, D3 became faster and faster, where the D2 guys started falling in because D1 started getting faster. So hopefully this will pull everybody along further so that they're fast as well in D4.
And I mean,
yeah,
with the politically correct answer, no drama at all. Siggy, I'm disappointed in you. I mean, Seb, do you have anything to say?
no, I mean they're definitely gonna have to step up to match your pace if it's anything like you had here at Baku. Thank you so much for the interview and congratulations on the podium.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
No problem.
Now, for the man who absolutely dominated D4 today with an insane amount of pace, it's NVA. Hello, NVA.
Yo, what's good?
That that was just a ridiculous amount of domination. What are your takeaways from the race?
Yeah, man. I mean, wet quali went a lot better for me this time. Couldn't go much worse than Brazil, but that went well, and just really like this track, so it was fun to race Siggy for the first stint there, and I mean, the second stint was a bit quiet, but good race overall.
Yeah, and on that second stint, how hard were you pushing the car, or were you just managing to get her across the line?
I was just kind of managing, watching the gap behind, and then kind of towards that last couple laps, saving ERS to go for the fastest lap there.
Yeah, and you've extended your championship lead by a lot today with Leo Hudson uh, getting a not great result. How does that shape your optimism for the season going forward?
I mean, I'm happy about it. It's really good too because I may or may not be missing a race or two towards the midpoint of the season, so it's nice to have a bit of a buffer for that.
Hey,
Anything to add,
awesome.
Luke?
A little bit gap to add for everyone else to catch up to you. That's good and very generous of you, NVA. We do appreciate it over here at Mercedes. Yeah, but again, awesome race, NVA. I don't think there's anything to add. I mean, you've pretty much avoided all the chaos that we had eyewitnesses on. I mean, qualified pole, finished the race in first. I mean, commendable race, commendable driver, commendable everything. I mean, congratulations to say the least, and I hope you have some more podiums.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thank you guys so much for broadcasting, and I hope you have a good rest of your night.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
same to you.
Congratulations.
Congrats.
Well, that's D4 tonight.
Yeah, it is D4 tonight, and it was chaotic. It was poetic. It was contradictory. It was all those nice, complex words that I don't even understand.
But you know what? It was still amazing race and amazing content for everyone watching. And luckily for everyone watching, we have just as much content, in fact, double the content tomorrow night. Of course, D3 will be live streamed starting at 8 p.m. EST um, tomorrow. I believe I have that time right. And
Yeah.
D2 will begin at 10 p.m. So double the racing, double the fun. Maybe not double the skill on account of my driving, but we'll have to see. But anyone watching should definitely be tuning into that.
Yeah, and tuning will we hopefully we'll see all of you there for D2 and D3 for some high speed action. Some of the fastest of the fast drivers in D2 competing with even D1 drivers and some D3 drivers also putting up some big numbers. So we'll love to see what happens, and we will see all of you tomorrow.